The founder of Trinity Missions, Father Thomas Augustine Judge, had a great devotion to the Magi, the wise men from the East, the three kings, because he thought we can learn lessons from them on how we can follow a star which will lead us to God. Let's look at that story to see what lessons we can gather for our own life and our own spirituality. The first thing to notice about the Magi is that in order to follow a star, you have to go into the darkness. You can't find a star if you're sitting in your living room. Even though the living room's more comfortable, has more light, you can't see a star there. And so you go into the darkness, and then the star will appear. But that is really similar to the story of prayer, which we all know from our own lives. If we're going to ever encounter God, it's going to often be by entering into the darkness, by watching and waiting. So if we can imitate the Magi and not be afraid to go into the darkness of prayer and wait patiently, day after day, eventually we'll come to recognize the face of God. But as the Magi teach us, to recognize God in the star that is coming, you have to know what it means. How many other wise men in the East would look up and see that star and say, I wonder what that is, because they hadn't understood what the star meant. And so they missed this opportunity to encounter God. So we in our own lives must study as well. We must learn the Bible, study the teachings of the church so that we can recognize what God is doing. And that will be a star that will guide us. The Magi, of course, had as the most important lesson in following the star, had to leave home. They couldn't stay back in their comfort zone. There might have been other Magi who knew what the star meant, but who didn't want to leave where they were. In our own lives, if we're going to be people who encounter God, who are going to meet God, it only happens when we are able to get out of our accustomed ways, out of our usual rut, and instead say, I'm going to live in a different way. I'm going to move towards a more godly life. And the other thing that strikes me about the Magi is that they were three, according to the tradition. I don't think one Magi could have made it, because it's so hard to hold on to faith all by yourself. But they could encourage each other, they could pray together, they could share their faith, and that enabled them to keep moving towards the star. In our own lives as well, we need companions for the journey, people that we are sharing our faith life with, and then we can find God. And then finally, if we remember the story, they lost the star at one point, and yet they weren't discouraged. They found a different way of saying, I'm going to find God in this way. I'm going to encounter God in a new way. And that, of course, is part of our own story as well. We can't get discouraged. We have to keep at this great journey that we're on of trying to find where God leads us. This, then, is why the Magi are so important in our life of faith. They are the ones who show us that if we're willing to follow the star, if we're willing to go where God leads us, then one day we will encounter the face of God.